All right, so this thing, counter arguments, rebuttals, refutations. Three reasons that you may be having trouble identifying a viewpoint opposed to your position, because this is something everybody sort of struggles with. So number one is, if your position is too broad, it can be difficult to identify an opposing view. The United States should improve the educational system. Super broad, hard to make it an argument. And you're not going to find the opposing view that just says, no, they shouldn't improve the educational system, because it doesn't exist as an argument. So you need to get it narrow enough that there's a clear other side to it, right? If I said something like, I don't know, the United States should commit more money to the educational system, now that's getting closer to having an argument, because someone can say, no, there's already enough, and but anyway, so you want to consider that if you're having difficulty thinking of what's an opposing view going to be, it might just be because it's too broad, and I think that might be my problem. The opposite is the problem too. If your thesis is too narrow and very, very specific, it's hard to come up with an opposing viewpoint, right? Second grade children should learn the difference between facts and opinion. That's so very specific. And you're like, I need to find something that says they shouldn't do that. It's too, you're never going to find that, right? So it's just too specific. So you need something this is the whole game, something that's right in the sweet spot of being specific enough and not too broad, but arguable. Okay, if you're not thinking about every aspect of your position, then you may miss opportunities to make a counter argument. So, for example, if I'm going to argue that mental health services need to be automatically provided to veterans, I need to think about the consequences of this. This will require hiring more mental health experts, and more money will need to be spent. These are areas that may have opposing viewpoints, right? So you want to make sure that you're checking all the areas where people disagree. Like, for example, whenever you propose something in general, how much it costs is always a problem, right? I mean, it's always can be argued, no matter what you're saying. So you usually can find that opposing argument for almost anything. I mean, if you're proposing something, to change or add or develop or create something, there's going to be another side that says it's a waste of money, probably. So you just want to make sure that you're thinking about all the different aspects of your argument. So if you're going to, you have your argument, and what will your argument mean? Like, will it mean they need to hire a bunch of new people somewhere, or something gets shut down? Or so you're thinking about the consequences of your position, because that's usually where you can find opposing viewpoints, because not everybody's on board with the consequences. So not too narrow, too broad. So too broad, people need better health care. Too narrow, the government should provide Tylenol free of charge. Better would be government health care provides safer, healthier pregnancies for low-income women, or it should. That's what I would put. Healthcare should provide safer, healthier pregnancies for low-income women. That would be an argument. I mean, in that subject area. So here's what everybody needs to do, right? You're identifying and clarifying your own position so that you can identify potential opposing ideas. For the discussion this week, you will agree with some part of the opposing idea, but then you will turn around and reassert your own position. So one of the things counter-argument does is that it strengthens your argument, because it shows that you know what you're talking about. Like, you're not just spouting off something, meaning you've thought about the other side, and you've thought about their views, and you've thought about what part of their views are correct and what part might not be. So all of that whole process, when you put that in an argument, whether you're speaking or whatever, um, counter argument's very powerful. It's like one of the strongest ways to make an argument is to counter argue, bring up somebody's thing, and then show why your idea is stronger. Let's see if I have an example of this. Okay, so here's my idea about concession, like agreeing with one aspect. All right, so here's the opposing view. Some people believe that it is important for low-income women to receive good prenatal care, and they argue that the private healthcare system provides the most skilled doctors and latest healthcare advances. So this would be an argument that somebody's like, yeah, we need private healthcare systems are the best for low-income people. So the way I do it, I agree with part of something. I say, while it's true that providing good prenatal care for low-income women is very important. So that's what I identified, that we both of these positions agree that it's important to get good prenatal care to low-income women. And then I'm going to say, while I do agree with that, the private system prevents low-income women from receiving even the bare minimum of prenatal care. And I can go on to talk about how it's expensive and exclusive and all that other stuff. So that's one example of finding something that you can agree with. Yeah, and then this is just saying what this week's discussion is. So you're figuring out what your position is, identify an idea, and again, um, if you can quote from it, that would be the best. Like if you could pull a quote that clearly goes against your argument, that's the way to do it and cite it. Um, so for any of the writing we ever do, pretty much, using quotes is a good thing. Using sources is a good thing. All right, that's the end of the week counter argument one. Um, I have to do stuff to do that before I do it. Okay. Okay, and then you have to do your introduction paragraph. That's the other part of this assignment. Um, just had something like 2 seconds ago. Well, I might, yeah, I don't know. Let's see what we got here. So I'm going to do this really quickly, just for the introduction paragraph. Um, so there is an example, right, from the week 2 lesson to take a look at that introduction paragraph. The main idea, one of the things to do is to find a hook, meaning like the first 2 sentences need to make somebody interested and curious and want to read your essay. So people do different things. You can try, if you uh, use like a startling fact, like something that not everybody would know. One of the best is to find like a real life story to begin with. So you tell a little brief story, a real thing that happened to somebody that you found, but that will also introduce the problem or the issue that you're going to argue. Um, and you don't want it to be a personal story, like not your story. It would need to be something that you find in some source somewhere. But stories are always the best, I think, because everybody likes those. Other stuff people do, they quote somebody who matters, right? So if you quote somebody, you want them to be somebody who knows something, and we need to know who it is. Like, so if you're quoting, some environmental specialist, you want to make sure that we know that. According to Dr. Greenberg, environmental specialist at Harvard, blah, 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 right? But that's they need to be someone worthwhile, like someone credible. Then basically you start broad with like a background of whatever the subject is. So you're giving a little bit of background or context to whatever your argument's going to be. I mean, for all of us, I'm assuming we're going to put in something about how the climate's a disaster, like it's getting worse or something. So that's basically our background part. So you start broad, you sort of give a little background of the situation, and then the last sentence or two is the thesis statement. And hopefully, and three supporting arguments. And you can do that in 2 sentences if that helps. Yeah, I need to fix my example. I really don't like it now. I'll have a better example. Anyway, so there's that, and then just take a look at the model. Those are the only things we'll worry about now, because you can always deal with fixing the introduction later. In fact, just doing a draft of one now is good. And then when
For
you
the
come back,
three,
yeah,
sorry, for the three supporting arguments, is that based on our artifacts?
well, you're making an argument. You mean articles?
Uh, for the introduction, the three supporting arguments, is that what we're brainstorming or from what we've read,
Oh yeah,
researched?
yeah. No, it's going to be sort of you're brainstorming. So like, and this is the thing. So what you're trying to come up with is your main thing that you're arguing, and then you need three. Yeah, they have you doing like three things, three reasons that it's important, and so on. And you need to sort of eventually turn those into three solid arguments on their own. So they're going to be they support the big argument. So if I said, fossil fuel, like gas needs to be illegal, my supporting argument is, and it's okay, people will be able to adapt to it, and I give reasons for that. Fossil fuel companies will be able to adapt to it, and then we'll create alternative energy and something. So and so it's from your brainstorm, but it could also be, because you've read articles. You need to try to find three solid, like, supporting arguments, because that's basically the whole paper. And that's the hardest part, I think, is trying to find, okay, this is my thesis. What are the three main ideas? Um, I don't know if that helped or not. But yeah, for the assignment, Chamberlain put together this thing where you're doing you're brainstorming, right? And this three list of reasons why it's important and valid and so on. What you're supposed to do, sort of while you're writing that, brainstorming it, is eventually, hopefully, you end up with sort of three solid reasons that are going to be your three main supporting points. That's the hope. And even then, if you come up with three reasons, and then as you go through the process, one of them doesn't make sense, maybe, and another one comes in and you figure it out. So this is just the beginning of the process. You have any other question of it?
Yes, sorry. I just want to clarify. So that's basically going to be kind of like what you were doing at the beginning with the changing cars to electric, where you came up with three opposing, and then you came up with three refuttals. the
Right.
refutation.
Yeah, but so that's all counter. That's the counter argument stuff, right? So these are two separate things. So basically, right? So if I have my position, and then I want to find an opposing position, and then I want to refute it and shut it down. So that's and eventually you'll want three of those, but for the discussion you only need one. So if I say, all plastic should be made illegal or whatever, we should ban all the use of all plastic, and one of the opposing arguments is going to be plastic is one of the cheapest, easiest to make materials that provides the most benefit to society. And I will have to say something like, while it's cheap, that's true, but it's also ruining the environment, and so we need to stop using it. So all of that whole situation is just a counter argument. And that's what I would do in the discussion for this week. Then the other thing is that I need to come up with three main reasons why, right? So I say all plastic needs to be made illegal, or we stop using plastic, something like that. Here are my three main reasons. It's ruining the oceans. That's one big one. None of it will biodegrade very quickly. It'll last forever, and it's taking up too much space in landfills. And then I need a third one, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. But that's basically, so those are two separate things. The assignment for the week is the one where you're trying to be like, okay, here's my position. Plastic should be illegal. Why? Because of these three ideas. And then over here for the discussion, I'm just picking one opposing idea, what someone's going to say against my view, and then figuring out how to basically say you're wrong.
Oh, okay, okay.
Does that help?
Yes, yes, it really does. It's just I'm taking notes. I just want to make sure
Okay,
I
good.
understood.
Cool, good. Yeah, that was a good way to explain that, actually.